We watch the news. We see war, disease, poverty, man against man. We see billions of poor people displaced by the power brokers. We see the super rich getting richer. Many simply see the news. They don't understand, or even try to. They don't know the bigger picture, the truth about what is really happening out there. The truth is, what happens out there affects us all. And all of those world events are happening not by chance, but by design. All of our lives are being affected by just a few men. Those men are members of an elite group. Their ancestors plotted and schemed just as they do today. Their goals are short and long term. They affect all levels of society. Lawmakers and enforcers, religious and political leaders, movie makers and media moguls, industrial giants and pharmaceutical murderers. All around the world they work, plotting and scheming, scheming and plotting. Nobody dares to speak out against them. Most don't even know. Through clever manipulation, marketing, propaganda and force, they control the world. These are not the people you're thinking of. These are not always the politicians, who are often pawns themselves. These people are members of a long line, a golden thread through history that stretches back thousands of years and can be traced through their own bloodline. We have given them many names: Illuminati, New World Order, Priory of Sion, and more. What they do and who they are is such a huge secret that any means is used to keep them safe. I have been at the heart of one such group and seen how they mock the world outside. Welcome to the world of a very real and powerful secret society. Almost everybody will have heard of the New World Order. But who understands what it really is? It's no great secret. It's been in numerous movies. Most see it as some kind of grand order of people in power plotting world domination and the development of a utopian world. This belief has been fostered and spread as if it were not such a bad thing. The truth is, a great many people want to join. Slowly, over a long period of time, this secretive group will introduce methods to take over the world, to replace sovereign states and governments. Could it really be true that such men conspire with each other across the world and throughout time? The answer is yes, and it is in fact a natural state. All men conspire. From children in the playground to politicians behind the scenes, they all lay plans for their own ends, for survival. Whether political, religious or financial, all elements are controlled. From my own brief sight into this world, I noticed that members of this particular order were from across the spectrum. A princess, a Hollywood star, a judge, a bishop, and an author were just a selection of the high and mighty. And one thing struck me. They all had a bloodline claim to their roles and positions in the group. Even my own palm was checked for a special line which would indicate my right to be a member. I had the line, I had the ancestors, but I did not have the will to join. Have you ever wondered why our political leaders always seem to emerge from the same universities? Why those same institutions also give us the leading lights of our military? Hundreds of years ago, these universities were set up by the people in power to ensure the stability of the nations, to foster and grow like-minded people, to give knowledge and training to members of the elite bloodlines of the world. Choose a name, almost any name from the world of politics, and you will find that their family lines spread out into other influential fields, such as the media. Because of the control of the media, the voices raised against them are almost never heard, or even worse, are stigmatized. They are made to look like cranks. They are given names such as Christian fundamentalists or anti-government conspiracy freaks. But you don't need to be a Christian or a freak to realize that the people in power are in it for themselves. But something has been working on the mindset of the people. The internet has been a hotbed of information gathering and dissemination. This is one reason that the NSA and other secret services are illegally monitoring your every word and deed. Many in the world now see beyond the news we are fed. They reject the official story about 9/11. They know there was more to the story of the death of Princess Diana. They realize that there are massive cover-ups over the misdemeanors of the rich and powerful. In fact, the conspiracy theories became so powerful among ordinary people that political scientists became concerned about possible mass hysteria, and so further controls of the people were applied. Every level of our lives are now controlled by those in power. From the moment we are born, we are given a number, fed into a machine, and monitored. Our health is checked, recorded, and our daily lives become data in a vast computer that spews out statistics for control. We are fed information, news, entertainment from birth. Propaganda manipulating our every thought. In Russia, everything is the fault of the Americans, and in America, it's all the fault of the Red Peril. False borders, created and marked upon maps by our illustrious leaders, keep us always against our brothers just a few miles away. Go to university and build up your debt. Buy a house and tie yourself into the bank for 25 years. Pay your taxes to get your bins emptied. Look like this to be accepted in your society. Eat this filth we have repackaged, painted and scented for you. Trust us. We are your leaders. The term New World Order is not something created in the mind of a conspiracy theorist. It is in fact something that has been used by a great many as an idealistic concept of the future of mankind. Woodrow Wilson and Winston Churchill both used it during the last century as a statement that the world was about to enter a new phase. The world had just been through a massive upheaval. From 1914 to 1945, a grand repositioning of powers was fostered, and we called them World War I and II. In effect, this was a movement of sovereign states. A period when the old, stale empires such as Great Britain were reduced to rubble and rendered bankrupt. It was part of a grand sacrifice for the great good of the coming New World Order. It was also used to grow the world's most powerful commercial business to such levels that it staggers belief: the arms industry. The three biggest arms industries in the world are all in the USA, the very country that came off best following both world wars. Every year, these three companies alone rake in over $100 billion. They employ 500,000 people. When you create war, you sacrifice people, but you make a fortune, not just from the arms, but from medical supplies. This then feeds the other huge industry on the planet: chemicals. Now, as world trade globalizes, so too do the arms and chemical industries. Huge percentages of emerging nations' budgets are spent on arms and medical supplies. And this often brings civil wars, which fosters that growth. After the First World War, a League of Nations was set up to bring countries together. It failed. After the Second World War, the title was changed to United Nations, and trillions of dollars now pass through this organization, which has amazing power. Like a nation itself, it can go to war, raise taxes, and enforce laws. And it can do this at the whim of just a few people. The same people that have always been in power. Add into this the organization we call NATO, and we have yet more incredible power in the hands of just a few. This is conspiring. This is an example of how people get together, decide on a future, and put a plan of action into place to ensure their preferred outcome. And none of this was done by anybody new. All the real powerful decisions were made by people whose ancestors and relatives have always done so. It was reported to us by media controlled by them. Now, years later, the world is controlled by centralized banks, trade organizations, law courts, religious leaders, and more. All of these run through the UN, through the same people. and all of these are led by people spawned and fostered in the same universities from the same stock. They also maintain a balance of power in favor of the US. Nobody argued with any of these changes, partly because very few people understood them, partly because those in power owned the media, but mostly because nobody ever wanted to go back to a situation like the World War ever again. So who designed the UN? In truth, it was the ones with real power, the American bankers who had profited immensely from war. As the system stands today, evolution and capitalism states that simply, the most powerful businesses are the fittest of the species, and will only remain so while there is war or threat of war. The idea we have been sold, that the UN brings peace to the world, is a farce and a lie. Created, run, and utilized by powerful self-enriching warmongering businesses that sell us bullets and antibiotics. One of the biggest bankers in the world is owned by the infamous Rothschilds, who have been implicated again and again in conspiracies the world over. The Royal Head of State of the United Kingdom banks there. This same royal head also owns stakes in the world's biggest oil company, power companies, uranium mining companies, chemical companies, and retail, amongst others. The Secret Service give a weekly briefing to this head of state, and not to the resident Prime Minister. 500 military advisors in over 30 countries report directly to this person, whose offspring attend the same universities as the power brokers of the world. Grand titles and annual awards are dished out to all those doing a good job for the cause. And almost every order, secret or otherwise, is patronized by them. Pull a thread with the British royal family and you unravel a massive web that reaches around the globe in every industry, in every way. Now, who do we think killed Diana to shut her up? As ever with conspiracy theories, we enter a world of confusion. Out here in the world that only sees small snippets of the truth, all manners of assumptions are made. Depending on your own upbringing and background, it depends on your point of view. A great many Muslims see the capital West as corrupt and controlled, whereas Christians see Islam as trying to take over the world. During the middle of the last century, Christian conspiracy theorists of the US started pointing fingers at almost everybody. Freemasons, Illuminati, even the Jews. They were the threat of an international communist conspiracy, what they called godless communism. The governments of the West didn't mind too much. The battle against communism was in fact something they wanted to foster. This red menace became a demonized focus. The commies were everywhere, and even the great Charlie Chaplin, the was accused of conspiring against the good old US of A. The beauty of this whole post-war anti-communism approach was that it actually played right into the hands of the capitalists. The same bankers and oil tycoons that wanted us to earn and spend. Communism was evil. It was out to get us. Fight communism by digging yourself a grave even deeper into the capitalist system. Be a good American and buy more than you need. And yet, even though there is this supposed international hatred between East and West, Muslim and Christian, communist and capitalist, the fact remains that all along, the leaders, thinkers and businessmen of all sides meet regularly, strike deals, buy each other's companies, trade and toy with us like lab rats. All elected politicians are only in power for a short period of time. The real power are those people behind the scenes, the ones who never change, the ones whose family lines can be traced back down that golden thread and into the heart of secret orders and cabals. The civil servants of the world have more power than their puppet politicians, and it is these same people that hold regular meetings with counterparts across the world. Whether business, religion, royalty or politics, it does not matter. All are methods of control, and all are controlled by an elite few. The puppets of these men with real power mostly have no idea that they are being controlled. Ego is a wonderful tool to manipulate, whether somebody wishes to be a media star or the next president. Words, like songs, are written for them, and they sing along to the merry tune. President George Bush gave an infamous speech in 1990. It was a vision of the coming utopia, now that the Red Menace had gone. Here's what he said. Until now, the world we've known has been a world divided. A world of barbed wire and concrete block, conflict and Cold War. Now we can see a new world coming into view. A world in which there is the very real prospect of a new world order. In the words of Winston Churchill, a world order in which the principles of justice and fair play protect the weak against the strong. A world where the United Nations, freed from Cold War stalemate, is poised to fulfill the historic vision of its founders. A world in which freedom and respect for human rights finds a home among all nations. It seemed to many that Bush was ushering in a new phase of the New World Order plot. Many saw it as oversimplified. Many conspiracy theorists were shocked, and Christians thought he was announcing the end times. Most saw it as a shift of power away from the US and other sovereign states to the UN, a new world government with hands across the world and in the pockets of most of us. Throughout the 1990s, more and more information leaked out to the masses. We discovered a secret group meeting of the most powerful people on the planet. Business leaders, billionaires, religious leaders, politicians, powerful civil servants. Regardless of race or creed, they came together at a small hotel in Bilderberg in the Netherlands and became known as the Bilderberg Group. This is the official statement from the group. Founded in 1954, Bilderberg is an annual conference designed to foster dialogue between Europe and North America. Every year, between 120 and 150 political leaders and experts from industry, finance, academia, and the media are invited to take part in the conference. About 2/3 of the participants come from Europe and the rest from North America. 1/3 from politics and government, and the rest from other fields. The conference is a forum for informal discussions about megatrends and major issues facing the world. The meetings are held under the Chatham House Rule, which states that participants are free to use the information received, but neither the identity nor the affiliation of the speakers, nor of any of the participants, may be revealed. Thanks to the private nature of the conference, the participants are not bound by the conventions of their office or by pre-agreed positions. As such, they can take time to listen, reflect, and gather insights. There is no detailed agenda, no resolutions are proposed, no votes are taken, and no policy statements are issued. There is no detailed agenda. We are supposed to accept this, that highly educated and powerful men come together from across the world with no agenda. The meetings are secret. Elected and unelected behind closed doors and decide on what happens next. People that run international billion-dollar companies come and influence the politics of the world. What gives them the right? Do we really believe that what is being discussed and decided upon is for the good of all mankind? And this is what we know, and we only know because we discovered it. Had the meetings not been uncovered, then it would still be a secret. What else do we not know? Add on to this one simple annual meeting all the other elements pointed at by conspiracy theorists. The power and influence of Wall Street, the Federal Reserve System, the Council on Foreign Relations, called by some the Shadow Government, and of course, the Trilateral Commission. Again, like the Bilderberg Group, the Trilateral Commission is a meeting of powerful minds. Here's what their website says. The Commission was originally created in 1973 to bring together experienced leaders within the private sector to discuss issues of global concern at a time when communication and cooperation between Europe, North America, and Asia were lacking. The Commission has grown since its early days to include members from more countries in these regions, and it continues to find that study and dialogue about the pressing problems facing our planet remain as important today as in 1973. Problems and threats have changed, but their importance has only increased due to the more interconnected and interdependent world in which we now live. Interconnected and interdependent world in which we now live. On the face of it, that's nice, but the reality has not brought us a safer world. Terrorism, war, disease, hunger, genocide, and more are still rife. Divisions between cultures widen and are fostered. And yet, global business sells arms, medical supplies, engineering, and more to all sides. Supplied by the very same people who run and own the multinational companies and governments that also meet secretly behind closed doors. They feed us lies and deal with each other. We are being controlled and manipulated. Our eyes are diverted with one news item after another. An atrocity is caused, blame is assigned, arms budgets increase, and a new or re-envisaged old enemy created. While we point fingers at the Russians, we trade with them. While we point fingers at Islam, we undermine their cultures with covert CIA and Secret Service operations. Gaddafi, Saddam Hussein, Osama bin Laden and more were all pawns of the Secret Services. Educated, paid for and placed into power by the West. It is a process that has been going on for centuries. Useful pawns while the sun shines, and useful pawns in a blame game that fosters arms sales and a deeper, more interconnected set of regulations for the world powers. Bringing closer and closer the new world government all the time. Today, the internet is full of conspiracy theories. From the Kennedy assassination to 9/11. Just as those in power foster the talk of little green men in the world of UFOlogy, they leave the conspiracy world to its own devices as crank after crank draws conclusions that are then mocked in mass media. A backlash to the Hollywood films created to mock and simplify the world of conspiracy has been in fact to widen the audience. More and more people run off to search out the truth, whatever that is. When the Da Vinci Code was published, the world asked, did Jesus have a child? A blockbuster followed and more people started to question. A fake secret society, first brought to light in another book, was used by Dan Brown as the powerful cabal that covered up and protected the secret. The Priory of Sion had already been shown to have no real basis in reality, and was in fact grown out of the mind of a few egotistical French men. An order that protects a secret bloodline, has links into royalty and church, has powerful political members and great thinkers. In truth, there is such a society, and one that in fact had mostly the same great masters. It was known about by the original authors who were friends with that Grand Master, and who altered the facts slightly in order not to upset them. They exist to this day. They do have royal patronage, political members, movie stars and more. They meet at an extremely grand location in Cambridge that I have visited with them. Their ceremonies hark back in time to a medieval age, with robes and swords and arcane phrases. And they do seek out the child of Jesus, in the hope of fulfilling a grand design. During my time with these people, I had to pinch myself, because it was like being in a Hollywood movie. A turn of the head, and I was introduced to some extremely famous people. And yet, I could not find the will within me to join in, to be part of the secret world, and so I parted company. There can be no denying that across the world, very powerful people are controlling things. We can create names, change things a little, point fingers, but the facts are simple. They are too powerful to mess with for an ordinary person. Black Ops, ancient martial religious orders with power in the UN. MK Ultra cover-ups of medical testing on citizens. CIA intrigue, assassinations, and so much more prove beyond all doubt that the world is not as we perceive. The term New World Order has not gone away. Only recently, British and American politicians have freely used the term to help us understand the need to avert another financial disaster that they created. That disaster strengthened the need for a yet more integrated financial system in the world, even if it is with the people we are told are our enemies. A new world is emerging. India, China, and South American countries are growing fast, and the elite need to be embedded. They have succeeded, with bankers and business rushing in to solidify unity across cultures. A burger in Beijing tastes the same as a burger in New York. The word is now out. The world knows something is happening behind the scenes. More and more people are aware. More and more questions are asked of the so-called independent news we are fed. When a plane goes missing or is shot down, the people ask, who really did that? Popular entertainers, musicians, and even talk show hosts are forming anti-elitist friendships and pointing fingers. But there always remains one big question. What is the real purpose of this massive conspiracy, if it truly exists? To many Christians, the conspiracy is an evil plot by Satanists to bring about the end time. We are living in the last days, they say. Those people who are controlling us do so because they made a deal with the devil, sold their souls for power. They will promise us a utopian world where they plan to bring their satanic empire on earth. They have their own trinity, Satan, the Antichrist, and the false prophet. Numerous people have had the finger pointed at them for all or one of these, and as they die, a new name is chosen. It goes on and on. A fantasy world of religious nonsense. People who are tied and yoked to a fairy tale story, creating yet more fairy tale stories. The biggest organization picked on by all conspiracy theorists is, of course, the Freemasons. It began in around the 16th century in England, the home of so many origins. It is an organization that has secrets, and yet the membership is fairly open. A great many people in power have been members, but so too have many who are not. To the outside world, its symbols and ways are strange and arcane. There are multiple layers. On the one hand, the symbols speak of a great work upon the individual, to make that person more pure and holy. To fundamentalist Christians, they worship Lucifer and hold no particular religion. In truth, they accept all religions into their fold. But a man must believe in God of some form. This is an all-inclusive club in that respect, and it crosses religious and political boundaries. No wonder that people have pointed at it as the origin of the grand cabal that rules the world. The original accusations that the Freemasons covertly brought about revolutions in many countries is in truth a fact. there is no denying that the French, American, and Spanish revolutions and civil wars were fostered by Freemasonic workings. This in turn fostered anti-Freemasonry, especially in the USA. It is postulated that their ideals of bringing a new Jerusalem upon the world made them include their own symbolism in the ground plans of the cities in the US. Washington, D.C. is awash with Masonic symbolism. And yet, any group of people with symbols use them and spread them. It does not mean that they are running the world. In general, the Masons do a lot of work. Yes, they conspire with each other, as all men do. Yes, they have placed their mark forcefully upon history. But they also do a lot of charitable work, and the vast majority of them are ordinary people looking for a home and self-improvement. It is a society that mirrors evolution, the strongest of the species working together for survival. They claim they promote rationalism in a world of irrationalists. They claim there is no real power in those occult symbols, and that they use them for purposes of tradition and self-growth. The Latin phrase Novus Ordo Seclorum, which appears on the Great Seal of the USA and the dollar bill, actually means New Order of the Ages, and not New World Order. They say it speaks of the New World of America, a new independent state, free of the bounds of old Europe. They also say that they have no intention of rebuilding the Temple of Solomon, because it is there for symbolic purposes. I myself have met many Freemasons, some powerful, others not. I have never yet looked at one and thought to myself, yes, you're an evil, power-hungry monster. The ones I have met have been more interested in the process of self-improvement, of meeting like-minded friends, and of course, helping them get ahead in business. It is such a vast organization that almost anything you want to throw at them will find a home. Accuse them of political intrigue and you will find it, because a great many politicians are members. But this is not the secret cabal we are seeking. This is a club of men used for many purposes, and like any other institution, it is used occasionally by those in real power. The same can be said of a political party, religious group, or trade union. Inextricably linked to the Freemasons by so many conspiracy theorists is the Illuminati. It was all started in 1776 by a professor called Adam Weishaupt in Bavaria, Germany. Its members were recruited from within the Freemasons originally and advocated secularism, liberalism, and republicanism. It was a direct threat to the royal houses of Europe and the religious world at large. As such a threat, and because of its growth, the secret agents of Charles Theodore, the Elector of Bavaria, infiltrated the organization. He refused to allow a group that advocated the end of the Bavarian monarchy and its state religion, the Catholic Church. It didn't end there. Even after the suppression and supposed dissolution of the Illuminati, it was claimed that they had continued and gone underground. The French Revolution was pinned on them, and it was stated that they were really behind the terrible atrocities in the Reign of Terror. The Illuminati were everywhere, hidden and dangerous. Europe was under threat. The facts are there. Men across Europe were conspiring secretly to bring down the authorities of church and state. The Illuminati was a convenient title. Just as today we use ISIS or Al-Qaeda. By the 19th century, the royal houses of Europe were seriously afraid of this hidden threat. In fact, the methods used to suppress revolution were so harsh that they in fact brought it on. By the 20th century, the myth of the Illuminati was so strong and still alive that it was being claimed they had infiltrated every level of society. And that, in reality, it was serving the Jewish elite. This kind of propaganda actually played right into the prevailing anti-Semitism of the day. It was claimed they were actually planning on dividing the world between communism and capitalism, both of which were said to be of Jewish origin. The reason was to rule the world through this division. Suddenly, secret societies such as the Skull and Bones and the Bohemian Club were said to be Illuminati covers. A new world order was being created by this secret cabal through many seemingly separate organizations. The problem with much of this is evidence. We actually have no evidence that the Illuminati outlived the 18th century. All we have are rumours. Admittedly, there are a lot of rumours and links, and it is easy to see why 19th and 20th century writers were convinced they had survived. As if by magic, an anti-Semitic text sprang up in the early 20th century, backing the claims that there was a Zionist conspiracy afoot. It was called the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, and it was damning. Published in Russian in 1903, the text alleged that the Jews and Freemasons were conspiring for world domination. It is supposedly the minutes of a secret meeting between a group of elite Jews who, it claimed, believed they had the right to rule the world as the chosen people. Whoever really created the protocols understood propaganda well. It revealed that behind the facade of the Freemasons and even the Illuminati, there lay a Jewish conspiracy. It was part and parcel of a universal anti-Semitic world that culminated in the Holocaust of the Second World War. The protocols have been proven beyond doubt to be fake, and were in fact created by the secret police of the Russian Empire before the bloody revolutions. Unfortunately, it hasn't stopped the conspiracy theorists using it again and again as evidence. In fact, Christian fundamentalists have stated that it is a fulfillment of the Book of Revelation and proof that an anti-Christian conspiracy is in place in order to bring about a new world order. The very real power is in fact still in the hands of the elite, regardless of religion. The fact that some cultures occasionally merge with this elite is simply because they do. It is not the religion that is behind the power, it is the people. Over time, they simply adapt and manipulate, but remain. In 1917, they created the Council on Foreign Relations in the USA. The story goes that Woodrow Wilson asked a group of New York academics for opinions on foreign policy. The idea was to bring together scholars from a US and British background and to find diplomatic ways of ensuring peace. Many of these were from a secretive organisation set up by a powerful British politician called Cecil Rhodes. It was called the Round Table from the stories of King Arthur, the king who was given the right to rule by God himself. What in fact happened was the creation of a very powerful and unelected body of financiers, manufacturers, and international lawyers, all put together by the US Secretary of State, Elihu Root. Later, this same group created the Trilateral Commission, inspired by the banker David Rockefeller, himself the chairman of the Council on Foreign Relations. The web was growing, and to the outside world it all appeared separate. This is how the process goes. Create many organizations. Place leaders who are part of the cause, and nobody is any wiser. The world is asked to fund it, and decisions on world politics are then made by people neither you nor I have voted for. The Trilateral Commission was to foster closer relations between the US, Europe, and Japan, unifying decisions. In truth, all of these organizations are run by the same old guard. It is the power base that has been in place for centuries. International bankers and businesses, owned by the same old people influencing our so-called democracies. There is no true independence won on the 4th of July. There never was. No president of the US has ever been elected that was not part of the gang or could be manipulated by the gang. No president or prime minister dare argue with such power. When anybody does rock the boat, they are removed. We have seen enough suspicious assassinations to know this to be true. A Democrat member of the United States House of Representatives, Larry McDonald, said in a book from 1976, "The drive of the Rockefellers and their allies is to create a one-world government, combining supercapitalism and communism under the same tent, all under their control." Do I mean conspiracy? Yes, I do. I am convinced that there is such a plot, international in scope, generations old in planning, and incredibly evil in intent. There is little doubt that men in power wish to remain in power, that they will do whatever they can to grow in strength. Along the way, they gather around them others of like mind. Over the centuries, that power is passed on, not to an elected representative of the people, but to others within the family or fold. Would you build an empire and not pass it to your offspring? Manipulation, promises of wealth, propaganda and bullying are all tactics used again and again, and have been used for eons. Just because those people deny or ridicule accusations of conspiracy does not make the conspiracy any less true. The Council on Foreign Relations is an imperial hierarchy, a group of unelected people who lead us. They have been shaping American and European policy for decades in union with other similar organizations such as the Bilderberg Group. In 1940, the science fiction writer H.G. Wells wrote a book called The New World Order in which he discussed the open conspiracy. He said, "Countless people will hate the New World Order, be rendered unhappy by the frustration of their passions and ambitions through its advent, and will die protesting against it. When we attempt to evaluate its promise, we have to bear in mind the distress of a generation or so of malcontents, many of them quite gallant and graceful-looking people. Wells was himself an advisor to the United Nations. He knew what was going on and even fought for it. His popular fiction, The Time Machine, is an insight into the reality he could not openly speak of. A future world divided between them and us. A world of people controlled, who have lost their voice and spirit." At the time Wells was writing his books, there was a world war afoot. It was a continuation of unfinished business from World War I. It was a social and political revolution in Europe that spread across the world. The outcome of these two wars was simple, and was, in fact, what the Illuminati had been looking for. The old ruling elite, the old royal families, the religious power bases of Europe were altered beyond recognition. Great Britain simply lost its empire. Everything changed, and power shifted to the New World. New groups were set up, or old groups altered in shape and function. Very few of them elected. Jobs were created for the boys, and the world suddenly divided east and west. A new spurt of growth occurred in arms around the world. Trillions of dollars made on the back of fear. Before the war, the same bankers and businessmen that set up many of the new groups were in fact helping to foster and pay for a man called Adolf Hitler and his band of brothers to come to power. Hitler wanted to wash away the old Reich and bring in a new world order. He had promise, but he was also expendable. After the war, a great many of the Nazis and their knowledge were taken away to the New World and used secretly for yet more power games. Nothing is as we are told. Almost everything we read or see on the television screens is manipulated or bent. Eventually, the majority end up believing in what they are being fed and begin feeding it to others. It is a simple process, used by the Nazis themselves. Repeat a message again and again. Ridicule anybody who disagrees. The moves being made are gradual and for good reason. If China, with its huge population, were to open up to Western ideas overnight, there would be chaos and revolution. It has to move slowly, build up the economy through trade and internal investment. It has to come into balance with the West, rather than being exposed to it and cause massive jealousy and resentment. In some ways, regardless of our opinions of the Chinese government, they are saving lives by working this way. Revolution has always caused massive bloodshed. The same is true of the West in many respects. We simply cannot place a one-world government into power overnight. Too many nationalistic sentiments would cause international outrage. It has to be done slowly. And we must not forget that there are those groups in the world who see the corruption of the Western way and are fighting against it. This has yet to be met with force and propaganda, and this takes time, and is a useful tool to raise yet more arms revenue. gradual nature of the New World Order is easy to map. From the 1800s, new international groups have been fostered to meet behind the scenes and grow the beast. A fraternity of brothers, crossing borders and religious barriers, meeting behind the scenes and making deals. By the 20th century, we were creating a League of Nations, an International Monetary Fund, a United Nations, a World Bank, a World Health Organization, a European Union, World Trade Organization, African Union, and the Union of South American Nations. These are just a few of the powerful clubs around the world where the members are more often than not placed into power, not elected. We are told repeatedly that we live in a democracy. While the West accused Russia of causing trouble in Eastern Europe, they sell them arms and buy their gas. While we bolster one regime in Africa, we sell the other side weapons and food. The surface story is thin. It has always been this way. As Lawrence of Arabia was convincing the Arabs that Great Britain was on their side, the Brits and French were plotting to carve up their land between them and siphon off the oil. Indeed, the British Secret Service were even in talks with the enemy, the Turks. The question is not whether a world government will ever happen. The question is not even when. The question is, why are we not fully aware that it already exists? The answer is smoke and mirrors. Distractions are everywhere. While the major Secret Service organizations of the globe are busy collecting data on our every word and deed, the governments are passing legislation empowering them to do so. Because of the perceived threat of terrorism, a threat they created through their actions and have utilized again and again. Israel and Palestine are in such a mess because of the British and French messing around in other people's territories. It is not a Jewish holy land and never was, but it was convenient. Massive distractions are everywhere. We're so bombarded with them now that we hardly know what's happening in our own lives, let alone being able to see the child of the New World Order has grown into a fully formed and functioning organization. The banks, the media, the politicians, industry, religion, and royalty are all members of this New World Order, and they all meet regularly at the highest level to decide on the next move. Thousands of intelligent men and women then run around with small parts of the bigger picture and make it happen. Eventually, the lies become reality, and we, the people, do the master's bidding. With all the modern technology that now surrounds us and entraps us, with all the science and evolutionary evidence, with satellites out in space and visions of subatomic particles crashing into each other, we ought to have arrived at a place where the yoke of mystery and religion no longer held us under its spell. And yet, billions of people still believe in God, ghosts, and life after death. Our ruling elite, the ones behind the scenes, the ones who are currently holding the golden thread of time woven by their ancestors, are no different. How do I know this? During my time with the Order in the UK, I was amazed to discover that at the very heart and right at the very top was the belief that the thing they called God holds sway. That it was of paramount importance to everything they did. That their power was given to them by this deity, and that it was their solemn duty to follow through as their ancestors had done. This is no joke. This is very real. These people are not ordinary Freemasons, although some of them were also Freemasons. These people were not ordinary members of the public. These were powerful people, and they believed in divine authority, especially as it was given to them. Each one of them could trace a line of descent back in time to prove their uniqueness. Each one was born into the role. They took it very seriously. I only saw a small glimmer of the light that is the world of the secret society. How blinding must it be should we ever reach its pinnacle? We hear names such as the Cathars, Templars, Rosicrucians, Freemasons, Illuminati, Kabbalists, and more. These are fleeting names, branches of one esoteric tree. But pull hard enough on any one of them, and you begin to unearth the roots, and they run very, very deep and spread throughout the world. There are secret societies all over the world. Its members are in power at all levels. Look at your own government, whether national or local, and you will find its members are on the boards of big business. You will discover that they have relatives in groups that control the media, religion, industry. You will find links to royalist lines of descent. You will find a spider's web. The question is, have you been caught?
In science fiction, we should now all be living in some kind of grand utopia. Beautiful spaceships should be carrying us around the universe. We should be jumping through wormholes and meeting new alien species. The times of war and unrest on Earth should be things of the past. Millions of years of evolution have brought us to this place, a situation where we are aware of ourselves, what we are doing, and why we do it. And yet we carry on regardless. We are no closer to understanding the one question that has confused us ever since we became conscious: the meaning of life. We believe it all started with a big bang, and yet we have no idea where this singularity, or dynamite, came from. And so we fill in the gap with the same answer we have always used: God. Enter an idea, a hypothetical particle that was believed to exist that may have explained a whole lot more. The idea was in reality a theory and needed faith. In 2012, they got their proof. The Higgs boson, also known as the Higgs particle, or even God's particle. Are our physicists now just a replacement of the priest? Or is the answer to the meaning of life still out there, waiting to be discovered? Or has it been in plain view all along, and we're asking the wrong questions?
battle with the dark, unseen world. And that battle has a word. Exorcism. These dark, demonic powers can take hold of the young and the old, male and female. Human experience across thousands of years reveals their existence.
Demons require us to voluntarily give up our free will. People who are possessed have incredible power. They know that they're damned. They tried to fight God, and they're trying to fight the Almighty. They've lost. They're not stupid. They realize they can't win. So if they can't win, they're going to drag everyone else down with them.
Is there a whole other world of unseen forces out there? And what if it is true and there are evil forces waiting for you to commit that deadly sin and enter your soul? Who will you call? The doctor? Or an exorcist? An exorcist.
England in the 19th century. Victoria is on the throne. The nation is at its height. And yet, behind the glow of this supposedly golden age, there lay hidden human misery and extremes of depravity. Baby farming flourished and businesses were set up around the country. Newspapers ran advertisements offering money for children or expecting mothers, who were then put out on the street again once the child was born. This, in that glorious Victorian era of grand buildings and statements of imperial power. Amelia Dyer learned of an easy way to earn a living, using her home to provide lodgings for young women who had conceived illegitimately. But instead of farming them out for adoption, many died from starvation, malnutrition, and neglect. And so the babies came, and Amelia let them starve. But she didn't leave it there. She starved them, dumped them, drowned them, strangled them, and became the most prolific female murderer in history. In many cases, Amelia took some white edging tape used by dressmakers, wound it twice around the baby's neck and tied a knot. The child died ever so slowly. Sometimes the neck would snap. She was later to say, "I used to like to watch them with the tape around their neck." Amelia was hanged by the infamous executioner James Bedlington at Newgate Prison on the 10th of June 1896. Her last words were, "I have nothing to say." At 9 a.m, she dropped.
We watch the news. We see war, disease, poverty, man against man. We see billions of poor people displaced by the power brokers. We see the super rich getting richer. Many simply see the news. They don't understand, or even try to. They don't know the bigger picture, the truth about what is really happening out there. The truth is, what happens out there affects us all. And all of those world events are happening not by chance, but by design. All of our lives are being affected by just a few men. Those men are members of an elite group. Their ancestors plotted and schemed just as they do today. Their goals are short and long term. They affect all levels of society. Lawmakers and enforcers, religious and political leaders, movie makers and media moguls, industrial giants and pharmaceutical murderers. All around the world they work, plotting and scheming, scheming and plotting. Nobody dares to speak out against them. Through clever manipulation, marketing, propaganda and force, they control the world. These people are members of a long line, a golden thread through history that stretches back thousands of years and can be traced through their own bloodline. We have given them many names: Illuminati, New World Order, Priory of Sion, and more. What they do and who they are is such a huge secret that any means is used to keep them safe. I have been at the heart of one such group and seen how they mock the world outside. Welcome to the world of a very real and powerful secret society.
I do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States, and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States.
America, a land of extremes. Wealth and poverty walk side by side. There are amazing cities of light, full of multi-ethnic individuals, all chasing the dream. Wild frontiers of natural beauty and danger. Vast tracts of farmland and dense dark woods. The world's biggest, smallest, loudest and fastest of everything. Incredible landscapes, incredible people, incredible history. Is America the nation the result of just a series of events? Or is it part of some grand design from some even grander architect? Is there some kind of mystical background at the heart of what America has become? The old world was left behind, and a new world order was to emerge and influence every continent on the globe. Prime Minister of Great Britain, Benjamin Disraeli, would say, "The world is governed by people far different from those imagined by the public." An association has been formed for the express purpose of rooting out all the religious establishments and overturning all the existing governments. The leaders would rule the world with uncontrollable power, while all the rest would be employed as tools of the ambition of their unknown superiors.
Preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States.
Atlantis, real or ideal? Legend, myth and mystery, or hidden and missing history? For over 2,000 years mankind has grappled with the question, what was Atlantis? From great sea power of ancient times to idealistic utopia, from pawn of Nazi propaganda to home of the ancient aliens, the full weight of human imagination has been brought to bear on the mystery that is Atlantis. Who do we believe? What is the evidence? Where did it all begin? Plato said Atlantis was in the Atlantic Ocean, west of Gibraltar, situated in front of the Straits of Gibraltar, and that it was destroyed by a cataclysm. Following the disaster, the remnants of this once most glorious city on earth were divided amongst its survivors, family lines of which some say still exist to this day. It's time to break apart the legend and myth and reveal the hard evidence and discover Atlantis. With every decade, a new discovery of ancient structures on the ocean floor emerges. Undiscovered pyramids, great walls, strange man-made objects abound. Explore the mystery of Atlantis and discover the enigma that has captivated the world for centuries.
Now you may say, this doesn't concern me, or my children, or my community, but this is less and less true.
You trust your government? Are the officials and leaders controlling our government and military really the good guys?
They have violated the law.
Did you know that the US government has drugged, raped, tortured and murdered United States citizens in a massive experiment that spanned decades? Chemicals, hypnosis, sensory deprivation, isolation, verbal and sexual abuse, and death are just a means to their end game.
It is part of their worldwide technique.
The CIA's project, MKUltra, authorised the use of mind-bending drugs on thousands of unsuspecting, innocent people.
100% of those people are going to die.
Yes, they willingly and knowingly are trying to control your thoughts and behaviours. Everything you do and think is suspect.
These are the contrasting points of view between the major antagonists in the conflict which has become known over the last decade as the Cold War.
Assassinations, conspiracies, cover-ups, manipulation of Hollywood, mind control.
I'm just an average American, but I'm an American, and some of the things I see in this country of ours make my blood boil.
This is the story of a covert operation that has not, in fact, ended.
They're working hard at it.
This is the story of a secret project gone mad.
Their end, of course, is world conquest.
This is the story of MKUltra.
A vague condition which we call the American way.
Do you trust your government now?
To be sure, the right to remain uninformed is one of the privileges of a democracy, but in a contest such as the one we are engaged in, it is one of the surest ways of losing our freedom.
6 months after having taken LSD, and suddenly depersonalized, suddenly lost her body image, suddenly split into two people and had no idea which of the two people was driving. And she almost ran off a bridge, and that lady's still insane and she's still in a hospital.